This week on RSBANDB Update, Skilling gets an explosive update with new invention, perks, and tools. Without being careless about it, we showcase the new perks in Theorycraft, what combinations are most useful. From Runecrafting and Thieving to new perks, there's something for everyone. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 1037, recorded Thursday, May 15th, 2025. Explosive Invention. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of RSBANDB Update. We do have the screen recording as you come to expect each and every week. That was a bit of a me problem last week, so that side is back. I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders again this week. And Pernasius is here again this week. Welcome back, Pern.
Thank you. I am number one Aussie this week.
Yes, you're right, because Tanis is not here this week, so that makes you the first favorite Australian. But you're also hearing in the background Lemon from the Michelin Milkmaids, who we group our event profiled at the tail end of 2024. Welcome back to the show.
Howdy, good to be here.
And you, of course, have done lots of iron stuff before. I think your main is ranked something like 68 or something globally on the iron table, isn't it?
I think 60. It's been a while
60,
since I've looked at that.
Okay, so did it go up because you did stuff or because people got banned?
I have gained some ranks over the years because people got banned. Most notably, I was ranked 24 for archaeology, and then somebody got banned, and then I was ranked 23. Wow. Nice little surprise.
Yeah.
It's better surprise for whoever was ranked 26, though.
Yeah,
because then they got bumped up to front page.
Yes, of course. But you're here to talk about the new augmented invention gear for Runecrafting and Thieving, plus the associated perks. We'll get into all that in just a little bit, but if you want to follow along, full show notes can be found over at update.show. The Discord can be found at update.show/Discord, and the Friends chat can be found in-game at BitsBytes. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a big shout-out to our experienced tier Patreon members who are the premier RSBANDB Update supporters, and these guys make the podcast go. This week, that's Amos Reed, Bladecom, Dominic R, Harry, Jason S, Jesse W, Kesky, Lemon Lunge, Luminos, Ricky A, Runestar, Oasis, Snail Mage, The Naked Captain, and Tim. Big, huge thank you to all of you. You'll hear more about our Patreon offerings and a new monthly bit in just a little while. All right, so augmented runecrafting and thieving. You know, I always have mixed feelings when it comes to invention. I feel like it's a bit of a mixed bag for me, that skill, but I think we're definitely in the right direction this week when it comes to the new stuff, aren't we? In terms of the perks and
yes,
equipment.
I think that there are some outliers in this week's update.
Outliers,
but I think overall it's a really nice.
Outliers as in too good. Not good enough?
Yes. Both.
Okay. Very niche.
Okay. All right. Pern, did any of these speak to you?
I mean, not really, but I am looking at it as sort of my Iron Man character. None of them really sort of seemed worth the effort of sort of trying to get the materials and perking
for
them
basically
up and
where you are
for that. For where I am at the moment. Certainly once I get over 99s, perhaps that'll change. I don't think there's anything really that jumps out, other than when I was looking at. Then thank you, Lemon, for all the work you put into getting all these numbers. There was a nice one I thought for the in the runecrafting for the necrotic runes, because I was sort of basing everything on regular runes, and it does look like it will help out a bit on the sort of the lower runes there.
Yeah. And we got a boatload of perks, including perks for skills that have not had perks before. So starting off, and we'll just do what we're going to do is we're going to do a brief run through of them, and then we'll talk about the components and then go into some theory crafting on them. But one of the new ones for woodcutting and archaeology is scraps, which is a 1 rank perk only, which gives you an additional resource when a material cache is depleted or a tree is felled. We also have Careless on the smithing side. When mining, you increase your damage by 2% per rank at the cost of reducing your stamina by an additional 10% per rank. So that's really leaning into the, hey, let's be an active mining player and not too much AFKing with that. When smithing, it increases the base progress per strike by 10% per rank at the cost of reducing heat by an additional 10%. So again, same active playstyle. Explosive, when you mine core rocks, your damage is increased by 20%, but rock opportunities will no longer spawn. Which of you is going to jump in there? Go for it.
On that Careless one with the smithing, because I've been doing a lot of smithing last week to sort of get that up. Your heat reduction is fairly. It's not that AFK anyway. You do need to sort of every 4th or 5th hit click to reheat anyway. So while it might make it slightly faster, I don't know that heat reduction is worth that extra 10%.
Yeah. Well, we'll go into that when we look at some of the theory crafting, and I think they're very unique tastes around these perks. And Thieving got its first perk ever with Oblivous, when pickpocketing avoid being stunned at 3 times the cost of damage on that. And I went to just test this out for the heck of it, and killed myself relatively easily at the Crux Nights when I was doing that. Wild runes for rune crafting, a 1% chance per rank when crafting runes to channel the Aranya altar, providing a random assortment of elemental and catalytic runes in place of the runes you would have received normally. It does not craft. It does not work when crafting necrotic runes. The XP is gained based on what would have been expected on craft. The number of runes crafted will be the same too, but the distribution will be random. I think this is going to be one of our more interesting discussions when we get there, and I'm not going to put the cart before the horse on this one and spoil anything there.
I do like on some of these, though, that they are bringing in some of the original materials, things like oceanic and shifting and silent and such, and making them relevant, because some of those ones weren't great in what they gave. So bringing them across and giving them a bit of relevancy on this side does increase the value of it.
Yeah. Then we have 2 archaeology perks. Preservationist, whenever you're excavating an artifact, you have a 1% chance per rank to gain a restored artifact instead of the damaged one. I really like that one. And then you have Hasty, which during excavation gives a 1% chance per rank to gain triple progress at the cost of not receiving a material. That one, I think, is going to need some interesting discussion points on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, you have Naturalist, which is for woodcutting, mining, and fishing, which gives you either the Overgrown Idol buff, the Deep Sea Fishing buffs, or a suite of mining buffs, including a Geode Enhancer, a Crit Chance Enhancer, and a Star Sprite buff for that one. They also have made that so that Polishing and Cheapskate will now include Runecrafting when you're crafting to give you a chance to upgrade or downgrade runes for that, including necrotic runes as well. And then we have the 2 new components, Offcut and Manufactured. Offcuts come from flat packs, hunter gear, and furs. And, I saw some fun pictures out there this week of people selling things like mahogany tables in flat packed form for like 70,000 plus a piece.
Crazy.
So, I just went to the stone cellar, the magic stone cellar, when I needed some of these, and just made some marble cape racks myself, and then disassembled those. And I think they gave two offcuts each. So that's how I did that one. Is that what you did as well, Lemon?
I made a 700 odd mahogany table flat packs on Sunday, and I was very disappointed with how few materials I actually got from that. And then somebody found out about the marble tech in clan chat and started spreading that around, and that is honestly the way to go.
Yeah,
because you don't need, unless you're gonna be rolling for some really obscure combination perks, you don't really need that many.
No, it's not that big of an expense when you look at it, so that's good. I'm wondering, hunter gear and fur. It's not like people are out there, keeping hordes of Larupia armor and the fur around. So I'm wondering, I guess that's just there for the sake of it to add a sync to it for people who have the stacks of it. Because it definitely seems like you said the flat packs are the way to go.
Who has stacks of them, though? It's so confusing.
Right.
Because it's very specifically hunter fur and the outfits you make from hunter fur. Yeah. It's not like your damaged dinosaur hides from Big Game Hunter or something like that. No, it's the
four original furs from the beginning.
Right.
But they're the ones you get from falconry too.
Yes.
Oh, are you good?
Yeah, well, I got a lot of the black ones to make the gloves of silence.
Well, you're in luck because the gloves of silence are actually needed for one of our tools.
Yeah, I've got about 50 gloves of silence and about 100 of the furs just in my bank. So
yeah,
they were handy for early thieving.
Now, manufactureds are a rare component. These come from wooden ore boxes, which, you build one and then you're done. So I don't necessarily know that there's a source of those already in game. But runecrafting talismans and tiaras, we know we have a glut of water tiaras and whatnot in game, and fire tiaras as well from, things like the Archglacier. But the other one is necroplasm in this list, as well as primal crossbows, eternal short bows, and iron to primal equipment from smithing.
So
I ain't getting my necroplasm.
So there was a little bit of an early bird bonus with the necroplasm.
Yeah, I saw that.
It on release, it disassembled one every disassembly action when it was supposed to disassemble 20 at a time. So that was really nice. So even that, you can imagine that was incredibly wonderful when you were disassembling one at a time.
Yeah.
Even when you're disassembling 20 at a time, it really is also still the best way to go.
Yeah, and I just went through the list and I tried about 100 of the water talismans, didn't get anything, and then I moved on to necroplasms after that and just bought a stack of 100 or whatever the most expensive one. I was doing this on the main because the GIM doesn't have Invention unlocked yet, and yeah, definitely even after that early bird bonus is gone, the powerful necroplasm was probably the way to go on that. And I think that's good for necromancy, just to sync those sorts of items like that there. Did anybody do anything with the primal crossbows and the eternal short bows on here, or any of the smithing equipment?
I had a set of primal +2 armor that I had smithed, I think, to get from 99 to 100 smithing. It was sat in the bank. I was like, well, these disassemble into manufactured components now. Let me give that a shot. I didn't get any.
Because I know I have 24 +3 primal full sets that I was, that I used for 110 smithing, and I'm like, I can either, just let these sit in the bank until 120 comes out at some point, or I can, sell them the next time the DXP comes around. Hello, we're there. Or at this point, maybe it might be worth looking to disassemble some of these primal, equipment pieces if they're +3, but I don't necessarily know if I'm going to need if I'm going to need that many manufactured components there. So,
no.
But
again, not unless you're doing some really rare perk combination stuff.
Yeah. So with that, let's get into the new tools, because I felt like when we saw this on the RS Ahead post that we were getting tools for runecrafting and thieving, it's like, oh, okay, that's going to be interesting, I guess. So, which one do you want to start with, Lemon? You want to start with the thieving or the runecrafting one?
Oh, let's start with the thieving one.
Okay. The pickpocketing bag.
Yeah, similar to a lot of the other tools, you have your sort of your lower level base variant that is just augmentable, or I should say, just can hold perks, because you don't actually need to use an augmenter on these. And then you have the higher level variant, which gives an additional bonus. So the pickpocketing bag just holds perks, and then you've got the mushroomy pickpocketing bag, which also has a 5% chance to increase the auto pickpocketing speed by 1 tick. I think this is super cool. I just have to say, I was really hopeful. Maybe it's because I got a spore sack from Croesus, and I'm really upset about that. I was really hopeful that the spore sack would be used to make the mushroomy pickpocketing bag, and no, you just need some mushroomy mush and some and some bitter cap mushrooms.
Yeah, 13 bitter cap mushrooms and 1,000 mush, which is easy to get if you have Croesus fungal stuff lying around, or you just go with stink shrooms, or not stink shroom, tomb shrooms, and just use the potions on them. That's the route I did for that. And the upgraded ones require the offcut and manufactured components, whereas the base ones require the components that we already have and but 5 offcut components for that already. And they with the thieving one used a sync of the feather-fingered necklaces, which came out in 2016, our opal silver jewelry item. I thought that was an interesting touch.
The feather-fingered necklaces. Everybody knows about those.
Yeah, I had to look up what that was. Because, I mean...
Makes use for the opals from those scabberites.
Yeah, exactly. But
you were saying, Pern, that something on that drop table was going to be useful at some point.
There you go.
But I don't necessarily know that we need that many there. So.
No.
But I think you're right. Out of the two, this one's probably the more interesting one, because that 5% chance to increase that auto pickpocketing speed. I know how much increasing something by 1 tick can do for XP rates. That's going to be interesting in certain cases when it comes to thieving, I think.
Yeah.
It's really only a 1 in 20 chance that it does it. So
right, but consider how often...
Is it that much?
Consider how often this is proccing off with how quick thieving actions
I guess
go.
So. Yeah.
So, as for the other one, the runecrafting binding rod, 71 runecrafting to use, and the crystal version of it, a 5% additional rune increase when runecrafting. Not too special, I don't think.
No, yeah, but it's a little bland, right? The pickpocketing one, I think it's got a much more interesting effect than just 5% more runes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This one only needs 150 harmonic dust, so you're not out for 4,000, and as is the case of some crystal pieces of equipment out there. This again uses offcut components and a carved rod of pure essence, which is a new item that was added this week for this, and this is something that is made with crafting level 80 at the furnace. And I know the reason I mentioned this is because this is something you were looking for immediately after update, Pern.
I didn't realize it was 80 crafting. Wow.
Yeah, no, I was like trying to work out how to do it, and I looked up and I said, okay, so I'll get pure essence. No, that only crafts into shards, and there was nothing that really told you how to do it. And I'm sitting there, I spent 10-15 minutes just trying to work it out. Didn't even think of going to the furnace, because hey, furnace is smithing unless you're just making jewelry, and again, that's because it's the bars that you're using there. So yeah, they didn't really, it wasn't sort of an easy discovery on how to make it.
Yeah, but
I was not expecting to go to a furnace to make that. I was at the Rune Essence mine.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I had Rune Essence. No, I can only do this. Okay. I went to the crafting guild. Did they add something on the table there? No, there's nothing there. And I was just,
if only we could be so fortunate
how to do
it to have uses for the crafting guild.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. I thought, oh, okay, 80 crafting, so maybe they're making use of the crafting guild, but no such luck.
Yeah. Well, with that, I think it's a good time to move into the actual perks around this and some of the theory crafting ideas, and start with runecrafting, because I think we're going to have the most interesting discussion about some of these newer ones first here for this. So, potential things you could go with here on your new crystal binding rod include Wild Runes 5 and Prosper, Polishing 4, and Enhanced Efficient 4. That's an interesting one, Lemon. I didn't think about that one. What is the exact sort of thought process here? Because I know you and your friends did a bunch of work on the runecrafting one in particular.
Oh boy! So because the way that every other augmented item works is that it works based off of every X period of time it drains X amount of charge.
Yeah.
So you look at you equip your let me just do this right now. You right click, check your mushroomy bag, and it says the charge drain on this is 0.42 per second, right? It's all listed as this per second thing. The runecrafting tool, because you only have this instantaneous crafting words, you have this you have this one single craft action for all of your runes, and the majority of your time you're training runecrafting, you're just running.
Yeah.
It drains differently.
So that's why players were saying that they were seeing a higher drain rate on the rod then.
Yeah, so for some comparisons, it appears that the crystal binding rod drains 1.25 essence, or sorry, 1.25 charges per essence.
Wow!
And in the course of an hour doing abyss crafting, high end, like max setup, you're looking at like 20k charges per hour. And necromantic runecrafting, which is faster, you're looking at about 34k charges per hour. And a really good comparison point for that is full tier 95 armor and weapons, which is 37k charges per hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your runecraft, your singular runecrafting tool doing necromantic runes drains the same as 4 tier 95 augmented items.
That's ridiculous.
So yeah, it's a little bit out of balance, I would say.
But at the same time, I feel like some of the most interesting things I saw this week came from that runecrafting perk setup. So
I think some of the most interesting are for sure, but certainly not the most impactful or overpowered ones. So if we're just going to jump in, let's talk about wild runes first, because to me, like, this is the really interesting one. But it's also like, it's super niche. So just like the Orania altar, the Wild Runes perk will give you different runes when it triggers based off your runecrafting level. So if you're 100 runecrafting, it'll skew you towards the higher end. If you're 25 runecrafting, it's going to skew you towards your airs and your mind runes and whatnot.
Yeah.
There was a theory of this could be really good if you the way that this works is that you get the experience for whatever you would have crafted.
Yes.
And you get the multiplier for whatever you would have crafted, including if you use the catalytic or the elemental runestones.
So in theory, what you could do is if you're a higher level, you could take this to the air altar, have it proc, and get a boatload of higher level runes.
Exactly. So let me just see leveling benefits. At the high end, you're looking at 11 air runes per essence.
Yeah.
Add in your elemental runestones to double that, and add in your power burst of sorcery to double that again. You can get a massive amount of runes off of a proc from this. But ultimately, it's not really that meaningful.
Right.
So if you're looking at this from a profit perspective, well, you're just going to be better off making more valuable runes in the first
blood
place.
souls or times or the necrotic runes if you're wanting to sell that. Yeah. Like I see this as a case where you might just have one basic binding rod, right? And then if you are an iron, as an example, that's got about 80 or so rune crafting, you just need to stock up your group on a bunch of runes. You just go run airs for a bit using that setup, and you stock the entire group up on pretty much all the runes at that point.
Yeah, I mean, or you could just do 1 day of shop runs, right? Because that's the comparison.
Yeah.
The benefit to doing this is you can get access to runes that you can't buy, which I think is literally just time runes.
What about
and
astrals?
That works out nicely for time runes because you don't need that many of them.
Yeah. I was going to say, what about astrals as well?
Yeah, I mean, you can craft astrals, especially now. It's a lot easier that it is in the abyss.
Right.
Update of the year.
But the argument for this is that you can get time runes early on an iron. I mean, you could also just go to the Orvania altar
and do the exact same thing.
Do the exact same thing. You're not reliant on a 1% per rank proc off of this perk.
Okay.
And there's also a little banker running around in the Orania altar now, isn't there?
Oh yeah. There's a banker in there.
Yeah.
I think you still have to pay. Do you still have to pay runes to use the bank? I don't know. I haven't done Orania rune crafting.
I haven't been there in years.
15 years. I do still have a soft spot for this perk, though. First and foremost, I think it's a really thematic perk that I like. I think this type of perk is a lot more interesting than something like Honed, where it's
because that's always on.
This a little bit better,
Yeah. And that's kind of the same thing for me too. It's just a bit of a different way of expressing yourself in the skill, I would say.
Yeah. So personally, I am really looking forward to using this perk because eventually I'm going to be right now I'm at 102 rune crafting. I'm going to be getting 110. I'm going to be getting 120. I'm going to be getting 200 mil, and I'm probably doing that at time runes. And I think an hour of runecrafting time runes is probably more than enough to last my group for an entire year, if not two.
Yes. So then you can spread the runes out that you get just with a bit of randomness on this then.
Yeah, and I don't like shop runs, so if I don't have to, if I could stave off doing shop runs for, a year by using this perk, that's pretty nice. But, if your sell on this perk is if you're an iron and you're doing 200 mil rune crafting, you don't need to do shop runs anymore. It's not a great sell.
Yeah, it's just okay. It's like a 3 out of 5 in that regard.
Yeah.
All right. What about polishing? Oh, go ahead, Pern.
I was going to say, I noticed you put wild runes with prosper. What about scavenging? I've always liked the scavenging runes. The scavenging perk on my on my tools, because it throws you in. I mean, I've already got 4 of the new ones, not the manufactured, the other ones, the off-cut ones, just some scavenging perks. Would you
go on a tool?
Oh, it might be on my. It might be. Oh, sorry, no, it's always on my pants. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. It's
Yep, there we go.
Yeah,
well, that explains
okay.
that.
I'm thinking. Yeah, yeah. So, wouldn't scavenging be a nice one to put onto to make it sort of on tools as well, so that you could sort of have that as that sort of little passive extra on to run with these tools?
I think that would be an interesting thing to do if they hadn't already done effectively the same thing with the Brooch of the Gods. Which, what the main reason people use the Brooch of the Gods is for it doubles the impact of the portables. It also holds your runes, and then it also gives you the scavenging effect, not nearly as effectively as combat does, but it is a nice little way to get some components from skilling. I'm looking to make that relatively soon, but
but again, for us, for the Iron Man who are working up, I mean, those those neck lasers and such aren't there, so to be able to sort of enter it earlier and get that advantage would be a nice thing. Just, I mean, you don't have to use it, but it's an option there for us.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention, we were talking about the components, is earlier, the new components earlier, is that you can get these from scavenging, and, and apart from the ones that you need to get immediately to make your tools, you'll probably end up getting a lot of these from scavenging. So moving on to polishing. Again, right, this fills a similar sort of role that Wild Rune does, in terms of, one of the nice things about it is you could get access to time runes early. One thing that's kind of interesting is I don't know how necessary really this is, but it does create the fastest way to runecraft soul runes. The soul altar being notoriously slow and having a low output, now crafting bloods and having some of them upgrade through polishing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Is a faster way to do that. But really, the main use case for polishing is for necromantic runes. So polishing is 3% per rank, I believe, to upgrade the runes to the next tier. So if you're crafting spirit runes, some of those are going to upgrade to bone runes. Or let me rephrase that. Some percentage of the time, all of the yield that you would have made is going to be replaced with bone runes.
And the same thing applies that, when... Sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say the good thing about that is with spirit runes, you have another insane multiplier on that, which allows you to get that amount of bone runes that you would have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like we were talking about with wild runes, the same multiplier applies for it, and also the same XP applies for it. So whatever you would have crafted is what your multiplier and your XP is based off of. Because spirit runes have such a significantly higher multiplier, that's where you see the most benefit from this perk, making spirit runes and having some of them get turned into bone runes. If you use this perk, the calculations I did also assumes level 20 weapons, or level 20 tools, because that's just how I am.
Yeah, just with the extra little bit.
Although
on top
it
there.
doesn't. it doesn't actually matter because it's percentage based either way. But anyway,
it goes from 12 to 13.2%. If anyone's interested.
Yeah. But the overall percentage is going to be. Oh no! Sorry, you're right. But anyway, the crafting spirit runes with your polishing 4 on it is something like 38% more efficient than crafting spirit and bone runes separately. So you're getting like a pretty nice benefit for doing so. The caveat is when you start moving up the tiers, it really doesn't apply as well.
Yeah.
So bone into flesh rune, it's only a 6%. You're going from 38% better to 6% better. So it's like a really significant dropout. The numbers that I ran for this assumed 110 runecrafting. If you're at a different level, your multipliers may be different and the numbers may work out slightly differently. But one thing that I didn't realize until actually going through and doing the numbers was that with 110 runecrafting, if you use a extreme runecrafting potion, you get the same multiplier on miasma runes as you do on flesh runes. So with that assumption, there's actually no difference for using polishing for making flesh runes. But you could look at this and say, well, if making flesh runes is the same as making miasma runes, then making miasma runes is the same as making flesh runes. And you could use Cheapskate and have some of them downgraded, and you get a little bit extra XP, but it's not worthwhile because it's a 50K per hour difference.
And that was going to be my next thing with this is that, we're talking about the upgrades here of polishing, but, you could do Cheapskate to kind of access some of those other runes along the way. And I could see that for the necrotic stuff, but I don't necessarily know that that's as good as going up.
Yeah, another... I don't know what the prices are, so I have no idea how this impacts mains, if at all. But like one thing you could do is, if you are going to do time runes for a bajillion XP, you could add polish, or you could add Cheapskate and have some of those downgrade to soul runes, and then you don't have to craft soul runes. That's a thing you could do. I don't know how impactful that is, but it's a thing you could do. One really important caveat to the conversation about upgrading your spirit runes into bone runes, though, is that spirit runes and bone runes are, for the most part, consumed at a fixed ratio.
Yeah.
And you're crafting way more spirit runes than you are bone runes. So you can't just only craft spirit runes. Because you only ever need so many spirit runes on an account. I don't know how many that is. It depends on what you're doing, right? But
just to go back to the Cheapskate bit, time runes are about 40 GP cheaper than soul runes. Soul runes are 671, and time runes are presently marked at 634. So they're just a little bit more in that regard there for that downgrade.
Yeah, so those prices will probably equilibrate a little bit, but I think it's really interesting that there is like a theoretical cap on how much you can benefit from polishing, given that you can't just always reap the benefit of some of your spirit runes being turned into bone runes, because otherwise you'll end up with 1 million spirit runes and you only have 100,000 bone runes or whatever.
Yeah, when you extend it out through that entire process. And I think the through line on the rune crafting stuff is that there are very niche use cases for it, but it's nothing that you absolutely need. I think the maybe the most compelling thing for me is if I was going to grind time runes on my main, is that I would probably go the Cheapskate route at that point, just to get a few soul runes for that, just based on what I need there. But I can totally see one of us on the GIM having a rod that's perked with wild runes, just to have to go to the air altar at some point and pick some runes up. But you also listed enhanced efficient 4 here. I've never used that perk. Why would we want that?
Yeah, so enhanced efficient, I believe it's is it 9% per rank? It reduces the amount of charge drain on the tool.
So that goes into what we opened up with then.
Yeah, given that, I mean, there's not a glut of useful perks that you would want to be using all the time for runecrafting. So you kind of do have this open slot. It's like, yeah, you could put Prosper on it. You're going to get like 2 clues an hour. It's not really that impactful. Or you could save, 36% of the charges.
Which when you look at the numbers, we're
really non-trivial.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where that angle comes in, and it's only really relevant for runecrafting just because the charge rate is so disproportionate.
Yeah. And for anybody wondering, the wiki on day 1 did have all their calculators and whatnot updated with the perk combinations for that. So you can head on over there and experiment if any of the things we've talked about have sounded useful. But I'm going to thank some Patreon supporters. Then we're going to do thieving. This week, that's Alvaro L., Amos Reed, Arvids L., Bladecom, Brayton K., Chilbura, Dominic R., Duramax, Gila Fleur, Harry, Jade Gizmo, Jason S., Jesse W., Kesky, Lemon Lodge, Luminos, Mongrath, Pernasius, Ricky A., Robbie D., Runestar, Samuel FL, Scott DS, Shirt Pants, Oasis, Snail Mage, The Naked Captain, The Davin Goat, Tim, Ukulele Steve, Woody, Zant, and Zazakon. Big, huge thank you, everybody. And if you're wondering how to sign up, head on over to patreon.com/RSBANDB. There you can support the podcast. If you like the show and you want to see us keep doing what we're doing and do more on that in a few weeks' time. But $1 a month gets you access to the roundtables, gets you access to the monthly bits, which are the bonus shows that we do. And we just did one this week on a big existential question. Can you rework, and does it need a rework in 2025, the player-owned house? And, I'll just say, normally we have happy ending monthly bits. I don't know, Pern, if this was a happy ending.
No, it was. I mean, it was certainly an eye opener. It was a very, very provocative sort of topic in the end. And I'd love to hear feedback from other players on their thoughts on it, because it was not what I was expecting to feel at the end of it.
Well, there is a place where the people have been giving their feedback already on that, and they can access that with the VIP tier. There's a Discord channel there where people have actually been talking about that. You gain access to that with our VIP tier. You also get a mention on the podcast at the start of the month, plus high-quality stereo versions of the show. And, of course, we do also have the Insider tier, where for $5 a month, you get a shout-out on the podcast each and every week and access to the clips that we use to make the clip show at the end of the year. I've been reading everybody's comments in there. I have not myself replied yet, but Lemon, you are also a Patreon member. What was your take on our discussion there? If you could give a bit of a brief teaser and recap of your thoughts in 30 seconds or so.
Pernasius said that nobody trains construction in the player-owned house anymore, and I do. I really like build and destroy construction. To me, if that's all the player-owned house ever is, that's perfectly fine.
All right, fair enough. And I mean, I guess when we look at the MMO, we hyper min-max a lot of things, and that's one of the things that kind of landed on that. But I guess there is always that idea for that, and a couple of rooms along the way added would probably be the best and most viable thing we could do. And if you want to see how we got to that discussion and endpoint, give it a listen. Patreon.com/RSBNB. Thanks so much, everyone. All right, thieving got one perk. Oblivous.
The one perk was all it needed.
Okay, yeah. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, I kind of sampled this, and on my main, I went to the Cruxakel Heights without any of my other thieving boosts. Now, I was dead within minutes here, but as we mentioned, this is the perk that makes you not get stunned, and as a response, you take 3 times the extra damage there for that, and you combine that with the mushroomy pickpocketing bag. I think we got some really, really interesting things here based on your numbers.
Yeah, so the thing that this perk does, I mean, it does the obvious thing, right? When you get caught pickpocketing, it doesn't stun you, and your auto pickpocketing doesn't get disrupted, so you don't need to click again if you get caught. That's the thing that it does. But the thing that it also does is make it so that there's not as much of a pain point if you don't meet the requirements to like 100% something.
Ding, ding, ding. That's exactly what I was thinking coming into this.
Yeah, so Cruxical Knights, I don't know the exact level off the top of my head, but I
think they're 83 or 84 that you unlock them at.
Yeah, you unlock them at in the mid 80s, but you don't have 100% pickpocketing rate on them until you're like in the 90s, the late 90s, and you've got Crystal Mask, and you've got Light Form, and you've got the camo outfit. It's kind of unfortunate, right? That
and the aura.
Yeah, you kind of the state of thieving before was sort of this binary. Is this viable at this level or is it not? And this perk on paper really helps to smooth out that curve. On paper, it is a little bit different from in practice because at most places, 3 times damage is a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So you do need to be, eating your food or teleporting back after you die or, whatever that may be. So in terms of on the max end, the XP rates at Cruxical Knights basically don't change, but you do. It makes it a lot more viable to do at lower levels. You can do it starting at level 82 or 84, whatever it is, to unlock it, and be getting 85-90% of the XP that you would normally.
Which is what this perk does. And based on my quick sampling of these, I don't think something passive like the Excalibur would be enough to keep you up in this case, because based on how those hit.
Yeah, because they stack you for like 900 or 1100 or something in that range.
Yeah.
But one of the things that people were speculating with this, and has turned out to be true, is that the old dwarf trader meta is back.
Oh my god.
I can't even remember when these were. This was, I don't know, like 2016.
Yeah, I was going to say 2016. It was before safecracking.
Yeah, I remember I did these for a while on my iron. So it must have been like 2015, 2016.
Yeah, I see you got the Gardler in there with the stationary trader. That's exactly how we did
I had to relearn everything. So the thing that has always been an issue with dwarf traders is that they're a high level. I think the requirement is like 90 or something to that effect. I can open up the skill guide, but it's a high level thieving activity where it's level 90, where the success rate is really not that high, and in the era of auto pickpocketing, that's a major turnoff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But now you get damaged instead of stunned, so you don't have to click. But also, the damage that these deal was never properly scaled with EOC.
Yeah,
so
I saw
if you get caught,
I saw the discourse on this.
30 damage.
And there's a fix incoming on that. We already know that. You posted that here. I saw that before. So
Yep. That's going to be patched on Monday. But the real crux of this, right, is that previously you had Cruxical Knights somewhere in the 800, 850 range. You had safe cracking, which on the high end, like a more intensive activity required, like a specific route to do the safes and all this sorts of stuff. That was in like the 900, 950 range. Dwarf traders right now are in the 1.2 to 1.3 mil range.
So get in this weekend before they fix it and bring it back down.
Yeah, and all you need to do to be able to do that is every 5 minutes you just restore your prayer and you click Crystal Mask again. And that's it.
Thieving is an interesting skill, and I think when they take it to 110, it's going to be one of the more interesting ones, because there has always been this propensity to lean into money-making with thieving. We saw that on huge display, of course, when Prif came out, and we saw that as well with the Cruxical Knights in terms of a seed source. And I think that if we're looking at a way to, inject more money into the game from the skilling side of it, I think thieving is an interesting vehicle to go with that. And I'm wondering if there's some early design discussions maybe happening for the 110 side where Oblivous might kind of fit nicely into that like a glove.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where it's like, God, I wish these perks had come out 6 months ago.
Yeah.
One of the things that when just so all of the listeners understand my journey. I maxed and when I say max, I got 200 mil all on my iron last May or June. I should probably remember that. I don't. And one of the things that once GM was announced, I was like, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it on the GIM. So that was my plan going into Group Iron, to do it, like reasonably as fast as possible. I mean, there's somebody who has over 2 bill XP right now in the 5-man team. And I have, little less than 800. So, I'm not competing for world first or anything. But, to my speed, I wanted to do it as relatively quick as I could while still, like living my life.
Yeah.
But now we've had all these skilling updates, and I'm like, ooh, I kind of want to slow down so that I can do 110 thieving or 120 thieving with the
methods that
come out
with
110 thieving, right? We've got new urns coming out next month with 110 crafting. I'm super looking forward to that. All these sorts of things. And, it's really changed the game experience for me. Some of these new updates. I mean, some of them haven't meaningfully changed anything. Like smithing, it's the same thing. It's a different color rock and it's a different color bar.
Right. And I think the fun thing about this is that, for a long time, there was always the discussion that there was always going to be more combat and more PVM updates to the game. But we are getting, truthfully, a good mix of everything here with this at this point.
Yeah. And it's just so exciting. I was excited this week with the release of these perks in a way that I have not been super excited for a while. Because it's like, how are these going to be? How are they going to shake things up? It was a lot of different revitalization of skills dropping all at once in a way that we really don't see very often.
Yeah. I'd like to move on to archaeology now, unless there's anything else on thieving.
No. Well, I've gone down the track of what.
In terms of shaking things up. In terms of shaking things up with that.
This is the one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, because I feel like there's many different ways you could go about this with archaeology. Honed, you're obviously going to bring when it comes to doing the materials and whatnot, but there's options for things like Preservationist 5, Fortunate 2, Hasty 5 with Preservationist 5 if you want to go that route, or just Honed plus scraps. And I could totally see myself as having, just a base-matic that I would use for material cache gathering that would be geared towards, filling that out with scraps if I wanted to, use preservationist and fortunate or something to that effect on the main Matic. But let's start with scraps then, because this one only works for the material caches.
Yeah, I like this one more than I thought that I would. I'm not a big fan of material caches in general, but there are times where it totally makes sense to use them.
Yeah.
So I have been grinding archaeology at the level 113, the Damonheim dig site, and that collection gives a ton of tetracompass pieces. So I was sitting on like 22 tetracompasses, and I needed to go and get all the colors for them. And so I swapped out the perks on my Matic, put in scraps, and it made a noticeable increase in how quickly that went. I was really pleased with it.
Yeah, because you get that extra one whenever the cache depletes, and they are going to deplete fairly regularly for that. So
they deplete way faster than you want them to.
Yes.
To your point, it's like, I don't know. It feels like you've got to really do a lot of caches for it to be worthwhile to either switch the perks or have a second one that has that has scraps on it, or however that is. Because if you're just going to do 200 materials, it's not really worthwhile.
Right, because, the other thing I was thinking is, what if you went hasty instead and you got no materials from your excavations, and then you just had another Matic that you would then go and gather all that with scraps. But I feel like you'd be doing more work in the end for that there.
Yeah, you would.
I don't necessarily know that kind of connection there makes too much sense on that. And I agree with what you said, that you could just use a second Matic, but it's going to be something if you're just hunting those tetra pieces or whatever. I think that's where that lands for that one.
Yeah. I think, if you were to go down the route of having like a secondary Matic for this, it's like, do you or do you not want to include refined on that Matic? Because refined makes those caches not deplete as quickly. Which means then, you're able to, spend more time on any particular cache. You don't have to hop worlds as often, but also, right, you're getting extra value every time they deplete. So there's this weird interplay where it's like,
I would lean towards no on that myself.
It's like these two perks are both helping with the same thing, but they're helping in a way that is opposed.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know how the math on that works out, but I find that interesting.
And I think the archaeology stuff is my favorite because it introduces a series of hard choices. They're all very specialized, and none of them are bad. And particularly for the case of Hasty, is that I don't want this perk anywhere near my Matic on my group Ironman when I get there. And even on my main, I really didn't do much buying of materials for it. But like you put in your notes, if you are willing to spend on archaeology, this is a good perk for you if you buy all your materials.
Yeah, I haven't done any of the math on Hasty because it's not relevant to me at all, but I'm assuming that this is going to be, if you're willing to spend the money on buying all of the materials you need, this is going to be your best in slot perk. Because all that matters then is how quickly are you getting your artifacts.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think there's also a neat interplay there, too, between Hasty and Preservationist, with Preservationist having a small chance per rank of awarding that restored artifact already, which, I see good for Tetra Compass farming, but also at the very end of it, if you're just going, to go through your collections as fast as you can, this is going to be something that's good at the end of the day as well on this. So for me, I would go into the Preservationist and Fortunate camp. That's the way I would lean on this if I was setting my Matic up. So overall, I think the archaeology ones are probably a very interesting reward space for this, and kind of make some very difficult choices for the skills in this case.
Yeah, it certainly helps that you can, like you just said, combo Preservationist and Fortunate. That makes the decision a little bit easier because, to me it's like, do I keep Fortunate on my Matic or do I switch it out for Preservationist? It's like, well, there are different benefits to each one. It's like Fortunate is going to give you more materials, which is going to translate to more XP, but it's not that many more materials. But Preservationist is going to help with those chronotes. It's going to help completing those collections, which in turn leads to, more XP. So it's really interesting. I really like it.
Yeah. What do you think, Pern? Because I know you were saying that this is one of the ones that you were most interested in terms of looking at, in terms of the...
Well, Preservationist, I mean, Hasty, not even going to look at. Preservationist, I thought was really interesting for that, having them restored. But again, you don't get the XP for it. So it's like, on an Iron Man in particular, where we are sort of looking for the XP, it's a very interesting one, and probably one you would look at once you hit the 120.
If we still did Yak Tracks, I'd be all in on Preservationist on my main because of all the amount of times that I spent at that last Warforged dig site there.
I mean, scrap sounds interesting, especially, but again, it would be on a second... a second Matic, not your main Matic, just for when you need to go, like as you've just found out, Gold Rune, you always need that.
Yeah.
You just run out of that so often. Third Age Iron's the same, so it's nice just not to deplete those areas. But I mean, they are interesting. I don't think they're game breaking. They're just nice little quality of life updates without being, wow, I need to have these.
Exactly.
I would go so far as to say that even if Preservationist did give the full XP for the full restoration XP when you excavated it, it would not even be close to the most overpowered thing on this list.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's a nice little one, but I'm not sure on them. I think the original setup I have on my main will stay. It'll be nothing that I would change.
All right, well, let's move on to woodcutting then, because the stuff we're seeing here is a little bit different. Obviously, the entire scraps discussion we just had on archaeology will still be impactful a little bit for woodcutting, but probably not as much here for it. I don't know if I would necessarily go with scraps on a hatchet myself. I think the biggest thing is probably going with naturalist plus honed, but there is a case out there, I think, from when I was looking at the calculators this week, the perk calculator chances, there's an option out there to actually get honed on one side of your tool, and then on the other side having naturalist 5 and scraps if you wanted to do that. And maybe that's the ideal way to go. I don't know. What do you think, Lemon?
I think it sort of depends on like what are you trying to achieve with woodcutting. Like archaeology is a closed system, right? Yeah. The trade-off of what you get only stays within the archaeology ecosystem, whereas woodcutting, there's a conversation about fletching, there's the conversation about fire making, there's a conversation about construction. So are you woodcutting for one of those things specifically, or are you just woodcutting for woodcutting?
Right, because if you're woodcutting for construction, then you would probably want scraps.
You might do, yeah. I don't know exactly how it interacts with trees that are on a timer, and if that interacts any differently. Also, like, I don't, if you think about elder trees, they're on a 5-minute timer.
Yeah.
One additional log every 5 minutes doesn't.
No,
that doesn't.
No, that's not much there for that.
Yeah.
I know we don't have a shortage of maple logs, because that's the kingdom's job. But before the changes that were made a few months ago to normal logs, I could totally see scraps being useful for somebody who was, just on a push to gather a lot of normal logs for some reason.
Yeah, there are a couple times where you need a bunch of specifically normal logs. I mean, most of where I think scraps for woodcutting is going to be really great is probably before you even have Invention.
Which is unfortunate when you think about it.
Yeah.
If you you two have both been, working through on the GIM, you both recently will have been building up your fort, those early days of, I need to get 370 Acacia logs. It's like, that's a really good use case for scraps. But if you're doing that, you probably don't have
You
Invention
probably
yet.
also don't even have a hatchet level yet that you can augment for that. So
Exactly. And that was exactly my point. You beat me to it on that, because I was going to say, this is fantastic for low-level woodcutting.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the levels for it. So it really makes scraps pointless in those areas.
Yeah. And, Naturalist is such an interesting one.
I do like that one.
Even though it essentially does the same thing on the 3 different skills it applies for woodcutting, mining, and fishing, the value on each of those is wildly different.
Oh, yeah.
And the value on it is also wildly different depending on what it is that you're doing each of those skills for. Because the perk has a chance to trigger on every time you gather a material. So if you are woodcutting at Eternal Magics versus you're cutting mahogany logs, like, those are 2 very different.
Exactly.
Yeah, the higher tier resource you're gathering, the less the value of Naturalist is.
And the thing that's becoming clear to me is that there's no wrong choice, and it's entirely up to what you are doing and how you want to play the game and move through those skills. That's what I'm seeing as we get further and further down the road here.
Yeah, so, if you are somebody who is training woodcutting at Eternal Magics and you're going to use those logs to train fletching, you're going to want to use, maybe you're going to use Naturalist. I don't know. It's not going to be amazing there, but, you're certainly not going to use Furnace. But if you're power leveling at Golden Bamboo on your triple claimed island every day, you are going to use Furnace, because all you care about is the XP, woodcutting XP.
Yeah.
So super, definitely not transformative, but I think that there's a lot of really good trade-offs here that make it really interesting.
Yeah. All right. And I think when we get on that to smithing, there are just so many cases here for mining and smithing. You can have honed, you can have combinations of Naturalist 5 when mining comes into it, with even a chance of getting scraps in there. You can bring Careless, you can bring Explosive. You can bring Careless and Naturalist at the same time if you want to roll the dice and, get a perk that has a 1.7% chance of comboing there. 1.7% only for that one. You can do Furnace, you can do Explosive, you can do Naturalist and Fortune. And one thing I had as a question here is that there doesn't seem to be a way to get just Explosive. It's always going to be comboed with something else, I think.
Yeah, I think you probably can roll it. It's not super high probability.
It's very rare.
I know, like, I rolled a few perks, like, half an hour into the update or something like that, with, like, just manufactured components. And it's like, you get Oblivious and you get Explosive. And it's
okay,
like,
so you could just put it on.
It's like, those two things in that, you can't put that on a tool and get both of those effects.
So you're just going to use it for one or the other, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Careless and Tinker as well as Rapid. That's an interesting combo, I think, for that.
Yeah. So, let's talk about mining first.
Yeah, mining.
This is, like, insane. So, like, Careless is just, like, a straight-up 10% buff for mining of all kinds.
Yeah.
And that's just, like, insane to me. 10% is wild to just get dropped on us like that. And then you consider that if you're an AFK gamer, Explosive is just 20%. And you can use both of them. So I don't know what the ore cutoff is for where it might even just be primal. I'm not 100% certain. But so long as you can, with your stone spirits and with your juju potion, so long as you can mine the ore before you run out of stamina, which is a lot easier when you get a 30% boost.
Oh yeah.
You should just AFK that for days. It's wild to me.
So this is maybe the biggest impact that we're seeing in any of these ones here, then, because we know how important that stamina and the clicking versus not clicking in mining is.
Yeah, and the thing that's so weird to me is, like, mining has this inbuilt mechanic where, in theory, you can be not active whatsoever. You can be moderately active, right, and just click on the opportunities when they come up. Or you can be incredibly active and you can 4-tick mining.
Yeah.
But, like, the benefit between 4-ticking and just doing your opportunities is essentially zero.
And this really exemplifies that, to make it so that if you are doing that 4-ticking, you are benefiting from it. Or if you are not and you're going AFK, you can lean into that side as well. And for me, I think this is why the mining and smithing rework was always just a hallmark of how to do a modern skill in RS. Despite how much they might not have liked doing it, it still shines all these years, 6 years later on that. So yeah,
I personally I think that they really did not strike a good balance with how rewarding AFK mining is, and it's only gotten more rewarding over time.
Yeah.
I mean, initially they did there was an update post-release where they, like, drastically reduced the amount of progress you do on 0 stamina, but that's really, like, not relevant anymore.
Yeah, because the two things that we got, initially it was supposed to be the Saren Stones that were the AFK mining method, and then they made it so that if you have the Juju active and you consume a stone spirit, it would recharge your stamina.
Yep.
So, if you were to pick a set of perks for your pickaxe after this week, what would you go with?
I am not 100% certain right now. It's going to depend on what exactly the odds of getting certain perks are. Because I'm not gonna chase something that's a 1% chance.
No.
For a marginal increase, but it's like, if it's a 5% chance, maybe. Honed is so. Let me preface this by saying, like, I am a opportunity gamer. I'm occasionally a 4-tick mining gamer. So, like, there is no world in which I put explosive on my pickaxe.
Yeah.
So it's going to be some combination of honed and careless there's a question there which I don't currently have an answer for, which is what does my mining XP ratio to my smithing XP ratio look like, such that can I get away with adding furnace onto there somewhere as well?
Yeah. Whereas, for me, I'm not much of a fan of furnace in that regard. I haven't had a use case for it, and I don't think I like, the way it works for me on that. Like if I was going to pick for me, it would be honed plus naturalist with that 56% chance of rolling scraps into there as well.
Well, scraps doesn't do anything for mining. It's just a woodcutting and archaeology perk.
I thought it was mining. Okay, so that doesn't matter.
And the thing for the thing with naturalist for mining is, because it doesn't proc every time you get an XP drop. It procs every, as a chance to proc on every time you gather a resource. You may only get like 2 or 3 rolls of that if you're mining primal ore in an hour. So it's, not necessarily very impactful on mining. Now, if you're, like a really big AFK mining kind of person, and like you're doing Baynite, you're going to get a lot more rolls of that.
Yeah.
But,
right. I didn't think about that when you take it to higher level or like primal in that regard.
Yeah.
Because I know that I probably would not want explosive on my pickaxe either, for the same reasons that you have said, because I like chasing the rock opportunities as well.
Rock opportunities are so good.
So okay.
I'm the opposite there, because mining's one of those skills I like to do while I'm folding the washing, loading the dishwasher.
Right, so explosive would be perfect for you then.
Explosive would be perfect for me, yeah. Where I can just, load it up, bang, run away and do what I have to do, come back every couple of minutes and just click. So that really, I thought explosive was probably one of the best ones on there.
Another thing,
and that's what's great about this
style. It's incredible.
Exactly, and that's what's great about this is what I don't like is perfect for Shane. Something that is great for me. You hate, because it's like, no, I like that lean forward chasing opportunities type thing. Yeah. And that's what I think we do need to remember about this is they're not catering to one type of player. They're trying to find something that's going to fit, something that's going to fit, individuals in different scenarios. And, again, I mean, most of these don't really do a lot for me. The explosive there, and I think it was one of the archaeology ones, which I found interesting for my style of play. But you guys seem to have a lot more in your different styles of play that are going to be useful to you.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask in particular about the gate, and in particular what Careless would do for that gate of elitness.
So Careless is noticeable, but it doesn't solve the issue with gate. So it was one of the... Depending on your perspective, right? One of the frustrating things with Gate is that there are very few aspects of the fight that are subject to RNG, and the only thing really that matters that is RNG dependent is how many swings of your pickaxe does it take to mine that rock?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And with a max setup, it's I don't know what percentage of the time. Let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that 50% of the time you can do it in one hit, and 50% of the time it takes 2 hits. So
it's noticeable then. It could be noticeable.
Yeah, so having a little bit more consistency on there is nice. If it brings it from 50% to 60%, these are arbitrary numbers. That's good, and that's an improvement, and that's noticeable, but it doesn't solve the thing that you're trying to solve. And still the only way to solve that, to guarantee that it's only ever going to take one swing to mine the rock, is to use gargoyle scrolls, which I think is perfectly fine.
Because that's how I did the gate. Is I used gargoyle.
Yeah. So it's a nice and it's a noticeable improvement, but if you find it still lacking, you may just need to go ahead and make those gargoyle scrolls.
All right.
So,
moving on to smithing, then. In that case, I think really, the only thing we discuss here is Careless in that regard.
Yeah, Careless is it. What I just said about mining, Careless for mining, is that Careless was a 10% buff, and that was incredible. Careless for smithing is 10% per rank. It's a 50% damage buff.
Wow.
What are we doing here?
Wow.
And
okay, I think I've just found my new favorite one.
you look at this, and it's a massive increase to damage for a massive decrease to heat. But it's still really good, even if you're AFKing smithing, because if you're going to AFK smithing,
because you're going to have the auto heater and whatnot for that.
You've got the auto heater, but you queue up gloves instead of full armor sets, which have the smallest amount of time to complete, so that you can complete them before they run out of heat anyway. So this is on paper, you look at this and it's like, oh, this is a massive buff for active play. And again, it's just like Careless for smithing. It's like, no, this is a massive buff for active and for AFK play. And it's like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. I didn't realize that when I was going for 110 on the main. Had I known that, I would have gone for the gloves only rather than the full sets in that regard. So
yeah, the sets are still nice. I mean, the sets are nice for people like me, right? Where it's like, I am, I don't have the nature rune resources on the iron to be able to use superheat on the bar every 4 ticks or whatever the spell cooldown is, but it's for active players where you're reheating the stuff yourself, it's not an issue. You get an XP boost for making full sets, and that goes up as your reputation increases with the guild. But if you compare the effort of that versus, you get a little bit less XP per ore if you just do gloves, but you can just queue it up and walk away and do your laundry, as you were saying, Pern.
Yeah, well, see, that's what because I when I read this one, I thought, no, I don't like that loss of heat that you get from it. This is not a good perk for me, but I didn't realize it was a 50%er. So yeah, once you do get that auto heater, it does make it sort of a much better perk when you sort of think about it that way. 50% is incredible. That's crazy. Sorry, I didn't realize. I thought it was 10%. Intended? I wasn't looking at rank.
Is this AFK aspect of it intended where it can be used for things like gloves? I wonder.
I don't know.
Well, the thing is,
I don't know.
It's a cost sink for coal as well, because to use it, you will have to have an auto heater.
Yeah, ideally you want to use the advanced auto heater that consumes 50 coal per time. It's a massive sink for coal potentially, but also even if you use the basic one, or even if you don't use it at all, it's probably still an increase.
For the glove.
Yeah, because, gloves just take no time whatsoever to make.
They do, so. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, because I always do full sets myself, so I tee up 5 full sets at a time in my bank, and just and you got to click on the heat and then go back, and click on the heat and then go back, which is frustrating enough in normal speed. So that's what I was thinking, well, 10%, no, that's going to annoy me. But when you're getting a 50% increase to damage, that's just gonna smash the gloves out.
Yeah, when we got the announcement last week of what these were, I just thought I didn't realize it was 10% per rank. I thought it was 2% per rank, just like smithing or just like mining was, and I was like, oh, that's really good. That's really, really strong. And here we are.
That's exactly what I was thinking it was. It's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, I thought 10% was the top line, not not
and
per rank.
Yeah, so smithing is one of those skills where, like, if you want to, like, there's like theoretical BIS perk slots that have like a less than 1% chance of rolling. I think Careless 5 Tinker 2 is like a 0.6% chance or something like that.
Damn.
For those of us who want that, but you'll spend more time rolling your perks than you will actually training smithing. So.
Oh, wow. I had no idea that smashing through that much smithing stuff would be maybe one of the highlights of this update here. I thought we were going to focus on like runes or something, but maybe we should have started with the smithing stuff.
The smithing kind of, it's kind of buried in there.
It's a dark horse. So we have one more left, and that's fishing with naturalist. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so fishing is I think where naturalist shines. So in terms of fishing, I think there are really two main activities, let's say three main activities that people do. You're either going to be swarm fishing, you're going to be doing urchins on the Prifdinus waterfall, or you're going to be doing Menaphos. And Menaphos is really, really, really good from an iron perspective in terms of if you're training both fishing and cooking, it's better to do Menaphos Menaphos fishing with the bait and switch relic rather than to do fish. It's not fish flingers. It's fishing frenzy. Fishing frenzy for fishing XP and churning for cooking XP. It's better to do Menaphos than both of those separately.
Yeah.
The thing about Menaphos.
What about the Ghostly Souls?
Ghostly Souls is another option. I don't know offhand what the catch rate on the thing about Ghostly Souls is that it's 15-minute AFK, whereas Menaphos is only like 5-minute.
Also at Ghostly Souls, it is actually slightly faster from sort of level 85 to 90 than Menaphos was. XP rate.
So I'm imagining that what I'm going to say is going to hold true for Ghostly Souls as well. With Menaphos fishing, you get you have a 100% success rate. So every 4 ticks, you're rolling the opportunity for naturalist to proc, which means that you're going to be getting it something like 40 to 45 times an hour.
And wow. that's a big deal when you look at exactly what naturalist does here for fishing, with the 10% bonus catch rate, the 10% chance to gain an extra catch, and the 5% XP boost.
Yep.
So, and I feel like maybe that's a cherry on top for everything we've had for fishing in the past as well with this. So that's really neat. I really want to get my invention going on the group Ironman now to use these when I really dive into these skills. So
yeah.
Well, I've got a tool, a crystal tool the other day, and I was thinking, what do I do with it? And I might be going to a fishing rod and doing this now. I wasn't worrying about sort of any skilling invention just because of the cost of charges and such. But this now, and now that I have my Vacuumatic, it's now getting to the point where, augmented tools are going to be used to help invention, but with these, where they actually do help the skill as well, this fishing one is actually, that was one of the other ones I was interested as well, but it's pushing it more than do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and it pairs nicely with Furnace, I believe, which is really nice because, you know, when you're doing these fishing methods, you're not worried about, you know, nobody's using porters to bank their ghostly souls or their belt fish, right? So
no,
that's all getting consumed anyway. So you just whack Furnace on there alongside your naturalist, and you're getting the best of both perks. So,
well, I mean, I do bank them all because, you know, the first bank deposits spot I unlocked was the Menafos one, and now I'm in the sort of higher area, the Imperial area. It's just like right there, and Ghostly Souls is a bit longer to run to, but still, because you do have to cook them all to get your cooking up, you do bank them all. But yeah, you'd never waste porters on them.
No.
Yeah, no. It just in case, you know, the two of you or anybody listening isn't aware, bait and switch is one of those perks, or one of those relics that you don't need the archaeology level for. You just need the artifact. So if you can get it from a teammate, you can get it early. So
we should get that for Tanis. We should get that for Tanis then.
We should, yeah.
I think
what's the bait and switch one?
It's the one that cooks the fish automatically.
Oh yeah.
I think you need an archaeology level, but you don't need, what is it, like 98 or whatever? I think you might need like 80 something. I'm not 100% on what exactly the level is, but it is
99 for bait and switch.
Yeah, so you can get it early if you've got your teammate able to feed you, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that puts a new spin on archaeology and a lot of these skills too. So that's really neat. For that. So, you know, just in conclusion here, to kind of wrap all this up, we got a bunch of perks in the Runecrafting, Thieving, and Archaeology section that you can, you know, take or leave depending on your playstyle. The woodcutting one is kind of in the same vein, but, you know, maybe something you bring if you're tailoring a specific woodcutting experience. And then things got really hot with mining and smithing when it came down to Careless and making those same sort of choices for that. Is there anything else, conclusion-wise, Lemon, that you'd like to add?
I've just seen a message from somebody that says a stupid niche bit of skilling info that you probably won't use. Naturalist can and will overwrite the shooting star buff. So if you go and do your shooting star to get the buff from that, lasts, I don't know, 15, 30 minutes, whatever it is, and then you go and mine, and you have Naturalist on your pickaxe, and it procs, it'll overwrite that. So just be aware.
Okay.
So right. You'll turn your nice 15-minute boost into a 1-minute boost.
Oops.
Fair enough on that. And, you know, overall, I think the most eye-opening for me with the smithing stuff, but also the runecrafting is something that will take along for the ride. And, you know, I love hating on Invention whenever we get Invention updates, just because I hate the RNG associated with the creating of perks and the disassembly and whatnot. And, you know, I think with this episode, we prove that Invention is a black box that you really need to dive into in order to get the most out of it. And what is going to be good for you isn't necessarily good for me.
And I just want to say kudos to Shane for getting Lemon on the show, because the information you've given us, Lemon, has been fantastic. You've really, I mean, I've come into this thinking there's nothing here that really is going to be anything I'm going to use, to, wow, I'm going out to get a couple of these now.
This is the stuff I live for.
Yeah.
Skilling theorycrafting the same way we do that for combat stuff, right?
Yep.
All right. Good. Well, with that, we do have a few patch notes this week. In general, Monty the Rubber Ducky can now be reclaimed from the quest storage chest for anybody who has discarded Monty. Competitive group Iron players are now able to complete the Music Maestro achievement. I'm betting there was one or two music tracks there that were locked behind a group encounter or something to the effect that we couldn't access.
Yeah, I think a mini game specifically.
Makes sense. Updated the achievements UI to ensure that each tier of Virago's achievements are now displaying properly. Burning eternal magic logs on a bonfire or portable brazier now takes 6 ticks rather than 11 ticks, similar to other high-level core logs.
Seems like a strange oversight.
Yeah. That's almost double the time there that they were taking.
So for reference, that brings eternal magic logs to something like 660k fire making XP an hour.
But again, it's fire making. Who cares? Why do we need that? I appreciate they put it up to 110, but why, right?
Yeah, you just chuck your magic logs, or just do the accidental fire making down at the down at Anachronia.
Yeah, and the last one, players can no longer get stuck from falling debris during the escape sequence of Barrow's Rise of the Six.
Oh.
That boss encounter is one that I would like to see get remastered and reworked, because there's just you can complete it so quickly, but at the same time, if you complete it and take your full time around it, it can be kind of cumbersome. For that, it's not necessarily one of my favorites out there, so it could use some general love and care. All right, what have we been up to on RS? Let's start with you this week, Pern.
Myself, just chasing the 90s again. Hit 90 Runecrafting yesterday. A lot of nature runes in the bank for us now, so feel free to take theirs. I think I dropped 20,000 nature runes in there. A couple of 99s, which we'll hear about later. Knocked out another 2 quests, so 8 to go for my quest cape. Finally got my mud battle staff. Been doing some Dagonoth Kings, and got. Was that just a novelty item
you were going for, or do you need it for a specific reason?
No, just bank space. It holds water and mud. Water and earth. It just sort of means I don't need to have a separate water staff now. I just like to have those mixed ones there. Just makes it easier. That's basically it. I think I hit 3,000 krill kills.
Has the log become undry there?
I mean, it's better, but still not great. I'm still well below average. I just want to have
the subjugation
a lot
pieces. He has had an absolute time at finding those subjugation pieces.
On my main account, I would average, 1 a run. I mean, sometimes I'd pick up 3 or 4 in a run. On this one here, it seems to be I get a piece every 6 or 7 runs. So, but yeah, I just want to get the subjugation up so that I can make a bunch of greater ensouled for the clan. So, for the GIM. So when you guys get up to those areas, it's just sitting there for you. You don't have to sit there and worry about it.
Such a good team.
Well, I mean, that's the whole idea about the GIM.
Yeah. No, it's lovely.
Yeah. Thaxi, who has the levels for the extreme invention potion, made me some of those so I could make my Vacomatic, and I made 800 charges with what he gave me. So that has been a boon, just to be able to sit there and, I mean, I had to get 95 div. Make those, and that's basically been my week.
Nice. How about you, Lemon?
Lately we have been doing a bit of group PVM. I've done a little bit of Virago, which has been a nice learning experience for me. Wow, that was always one of those bosses that was like intimidating, and also like generally I'm just not a fan of group bosses.
Right.
But the team knows that, and they've been coaching me through it. Done some combat achievements there, all that sort of stuff. We've been doing a bit of 4-man AOD, which has been a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it's we've had a pretty successful first 15 KC. We've gotten 1 prayer codex, one offhand, and one chest.
Wow.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
So how are you determining who gets the prayer codex?
The person who got it was the one who kept it.
Okay.
It's been one of our I would say the MVP on our team is a guy named Flynn. He's the one who got the intricate chest. He's somebody who just like does a whole lot of grunt work. Like he makes all of our necromancy runes. He does a lot of our divine charge upkeep. He's done, I don't know, like 2,000 or 3,000 Raz kills to get most of the tier 95 necromancer gear for the team, all that sorts of stuff.
That is a slog. That is a slog. Saying
he only
done about half of that.
He only got Prif unlocked on Sunday.
Okay.
And I have it.
Is that the story you were telling me about figuring out somebody didn't have certain quests done or something to that effect?
Yeah, he hasn't done Grand Tree yet, which apparently is a prerequisite for something.
It's a prerequisite for a lot of quests.
Yeah.
Directly,
Grand
but
Tree,
also just in the whole like quest hierarchy, right?
Yeah, but like Grand Tree is the quest that like everybody does right away, so you can just boost yourself up to like 40 attack. It's like one of the first 5 quests that people do, and he hasn't done it.
It was an early quest, yeah.
This guy has 200 mil necromancy experience, and he's almost got 120 defense. And he hasn't done Grand Tree.
Well, that makes me feel not as bad about having like 137 quest points and almost 2,000 total level.
But it's just wonderful, right? Like you don't. So many of us, like myself included, like feel we have to play the game in a specific way, and then we end up doing things we don't necessarily like doing in order to do something else. And he just doesn't like questing, so he doesn't do it. And it's like,
fair enough.
More power to you. Meanwhile, I also got my quest cape last week. So.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, very nice.
One of the best,
there's
one of the
a
best
little
ones
bit of
in
a dichotomy there.
I wish in the group Iron Man that we could do quests for each other. Like I could do the quest for Tannis, because I do love my questing.
Yeah,
but I do them when I feel like them. I'm not gonna. I've decided on this account I'm not gonna do it just because it has to get done. I'm gonna do it when I feel like doing it.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that really pushed me along there is the quest point requirement is the last thing we need for the tier 10 journey achievement. Let me see. We need. Another 120 quest points for that. So he's got to do a few more quests for us to get there.
Has he done like the grab bag of the ones from the early days that give like 5, 6, 4 quest points? Those ones?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. You never know. You never know with him.
Oh,
but
right.
I would assume so.
Yeah, that's good. Anything else then for you, accomplishment-wise?
No, I mean, I'm spending my weekend at Dwarf Traders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Make the most of it while you got it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, as for me, kind of in that same vein, of only doing quests when I feel like it, and when it's absolutely needed. I have been making a small dent in that list. I did everything needed to unlock Defender of Varrock, because it seemed as though every other archaeology hotspot level was needing Gold Rune, and I wanted to unlock Gold Rune, so that was the reason to do Defender of Varrock this week. So that's done, and the archaeology grind is continuing. I think I'm at level 64-ish right now, might be 65. And, we're waiting until I'm into the 70s or 80s to do our GIM skill focus on that. And I think that's going to be an interesting episode because I haven't felt any of the other GIM problems we've kind of felt like that. And maybe it's because I avoided doing early on archaeology daily challenges and only did the ones during the Christmas event, because I think I caught up on my collections by around like level 52 or level 53 from ones that were missing there. But beyond that, got the entirety of the dinosaur farm up and running with Scimitops presently, Jadinkos, and some salamanders. That took a little while to get the correct dinosaurs there, but with both Pern and Thaxie's help from the Dream of Aya, the dinosaurs have been plentiful for that. So that's good to have a source on that. But what we do need at some point to get a dinosaur set that will produce both the beak snot and the and the roars. We don't necessarily have that yet, mainly because I don't have the level yet to check where we're at with the eggs. But that's progressing, and I'll probably take a break from the archaeology soon-ish once I hit 70 to finally knock out that damn crafting requirement for Invention. I'm at level 69 right now. I don't know if I mentioned this last week on the show, but I did go to Carapac to try that out, and it is not currently tenable right now with just the base level 80 gear. I need a little bit more in that in terms of the prayer department to farm that effectively for its crafting components. But back in the day, in July of 2021, when Carapac came out, I took what was one of my first PVM outings there, a Revolution ranged bar, and got a Carapac kill in something like 7.5 minutes on normal mode, and my first kill on the group Iron Man was 6 minutes on the nose for that. So that's the level
perfectly
of
timed to last an overload.
Yeah, that's exactly it, and just the level of power creep, I guess, with necromancy, and probably a bit of a me factor in there too for that, but. All right, we do have a few achievements this week, as we say, the calm before the DXP storm. We got you, Pern. We got you with 99 Slayer on the Pugnacious character on May 13th. We also have Remo Reaper with 120 Woodcutting, Oral Sorrow with 120 Invention on the 12th, Chimney Lax with 99 Construction on the 11th, and you again, Pern, with 99 Farming on the 10th. Congratulations.
Thank you. That farming, all from pretty much 99% from Chinchompers.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it?
There are those with the farming urns, because basically 6 Chinchompers fill 6 decorated urns.
Oh,
so
can you
it's
get
just
me
so quick.
When you have the opportunity? Can you get me some more farming urns?
Yeah, I'll drop some in now. I've also put all my gems in there for you to cut. There's not a whole lot, but it should maybe get you a level.
All right, sounds good. What do you have for pick?
This week, it's a show that's been around since 2021 that I started watching a few weeks ago called Ghosts. It's just a comedy show, light-hearted, about a young couple who inherits a large sort of rundown country estate, and they decide that they're going to turn it into a B&B, and it's inhabited with all these ghosts, for the last 300 or 400 years, or even longer than that. There's an Indian on there who I think is like 500 years old. She falls down the stairs and is in a coma for a couple of weeks, and when she wakes up, she can actually see ghosts and starts talking to them and working things out and such. It's actually, I mean, I looked at it and I thought, I'm bored, throw it on, see what it's like, and it was surprisingly good. It's got 4 seasons so far, and a 5th one on the way.
Compared to other things you've thrown on, like that Section 31 movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, a waste of an hour and a half of my life. Thank you very much. But it's just one of those great shows. If you don't want any, you sometimes just want to sit down and just veg out and not have to think about anything. It's one of those shows you can do for that. Have a nice chuckle. It's got a guy from the Revolution Army, the North and the South in America there. everyone knows he's gay, but he doesn't. It's just like, but it does it in a good way, in a funny way that is natural. It's not a forced thing like that. The Viking is brilliant. There's a Viking in it. He's probably one of my favourite characters. And it's got someone sort of from all different eras. As I said, you've got your Viking, you've got your madam from back in the 1700s, who's very hoity-toity and all proper, and women need to be seen and not heard type thing. A woman from the 20s who does singing. We've got a hippie in there. A guy from Wall Street. So it does a really good mix of characters and just blends really well. And it was a surprisingly good show. So anyone who just wants a laugh, check it out.
All right, sounds good. That's pretty much it for this episode. Thank you, Lemon, for being here and throwing together the bulk of what folks heard during the theory crafting session. That is much appreciated.
Yeah, always happy to.
Oh yeah.
But anybody have anything else before we go? No? Okay. Well, if you want the next episode of Update delivered automatically to you, subscribe, update.show/subscribe. We're on all the big ones, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, and more, as well as YouTube at youtube.com/RSBANDB. Do give us a like and subscribe there. Greatly helps out the channel and the discovery of the podcast. And with that being said, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Happy scaping all.
Toodles.